Hey, it's Jake at homesecurity.coach. This one's going to be a quick break-in breakdown. So what that means is I'm going to show you some real-life footage of a real-life break-in that actually happened, and then we're going to break it down to see what we can learn from this, okay? So this particular one happened in the Brisbane area in Queensland. It's somewhat recent, and we'll talk more about it in detail, but as we watch this clip, I want you to keep three things in mind, okay? Your home security should be done in 3 layers. Your physical layer on the house, the exterior layer around the house, and then finally your perimeter layer, obviously at the boundaries of the property, okay? So as we watch this quick clip, keep in mind, watch for what goes well and what didn't go well at each one of those 3 layers, and then we'll recap and break it down a little bit afterwards. Have a look.
Good evening. Police are hunting a gang of thieves accused of smashing their way into a southeast home, seemingly undeterred by its high security. They're also investigating whether the group is behind 5 other home invasions overnight, stealing vehicles and valuables.
1:30 Sunday morning, a masked and armed gang of thieves are undeterred by home security. They jump a fence and case out this Rochedale South property.
Cool, calm and collected. Clearly you've been doing it for a while. They checked all the doors, all the windows around the bottom. The only way they could get in was to smash through the door.
That's exactly what they did. Armed with a rock and metal pole, with no way in, the brazen bandits take matters into their own hands. One scurries away, the other 2 move fast, snatching keys before taking off.
There's so much damage inside. They've thrown rocks through the window to get through it, smashed our Caesarstone bench top. The floor's all scratched from the volume of glass.
The group moved to steal the family's 2 BMWs. Their getaway plan then hits a roadblock as a neighbour tries to intervene.
Jay from across the road in his undies with a shovel running across to try and stop them. Very brave, a little bit crazy, you know, so many things could have gone wrong.
All right, so this poor family kind of went through the ringer a little bit there, as you can tell. The newsreaders broke this down, but I'll just recap and pull out a couple of things quickly. So a gang of 7 masked teens, and to find out later in the clip, these guys actually went south to another neighborhood, and it turns out they brought machetes and a samurai sword, which is obscenely horrific for the family involved there. But anyway, I don't think in this particular house they ended up bringing the weapons in. They apparently did target the vehicles and valuables inside. Whether or not they probably were looking for valuables, whether or not they targeted any on the inside, I don't know, but certainly the car seemed like they're targeted. Notice the time that they came was 1:30 a.m. So that was probably strategic on their part. They climbed over that front gate, which we'll come to in a second. They walked around, they checked all the doors and windows, and then in the end, having to end up smashing through. They took the cars, and as far as I know, the suspects are still at large, which is frustrating. The family, they had high security. Seemed like they did a really good job on some things, which we'll call out in a second. They did have those prestige cars, the 2 BMWs, apparently it was out the front of the property. The cars were both later recovered. And as you notice, there was a neighbor that got very involved in this little story here. We don't know the actual time frame, but it looks like this probably would have all taken place within a span of a few minutes from what we can tell. But going back to the 3D, that 3D framework of breaking this down, the 3Ds that I'm talking about, which you can just see behind me here, is deny, detect, and deter. More or less, that's what you're trying to do at each one of those 3 layers. So deny access on that inner physical layer, like on your house, detect access in that exterior layer, and then deter access at that outer perimeter layer. So going 1 layer at a time, you can see this family, and I do want to make sure to call out, this family did a great job in setting up their property. Still, to have something like this happen is an ordeal to go through, but these guys had to really work to gain access to that property to get what they're after. And as far as we know, there wasn't any physical confrontation with the family, but they did a great job starting at the perimeter, okay? Because as far as we can tell, this property was fenced and gated. You can see there's that solid wall, whether it's maybe 1.8 high or 2 meters high, including fully gated across the front. Now, given the gate that went across the front was see-through, it was just sort of like a grill, which was maybe part of the issue where these cars were plainly visible, though they were on the other side of the fence. there might be an opportunity there to correct that a little bit. But massive kudos for them having enforcement where they should theoretically be able to deny access at that perimeter, which is fantastic. The perimeter layer for me also includes your neighbors. Okay, so the fact that they had a neighbor who was aware and forming part of their perimeter layer, he's not on their property, he's outside their property, but he sort of forms part of their overall defense for their property. He was aware enough to see what's going on at 1:30 in the morning, probably from the noise, commotion. I don't know if he was next door or across the street, but the fact that he was alert enough to form part of their home's defensive perimeter layer is really good. Like we'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes, but so that's for the perimeter layer. I give them good marks for this perimeter because there's not much more that you can do in that perimeter layer aside for some tweaks, but great job on the perimeter. Exterior layer, you notice, and it is a little bit hard to tell with the CCTV footage there, but it seems like there's enough lighting where it's complementing the camera as well. It seems like, and the newsreader from Channel 9 on this clip said that there was camera coverage pretty much around the whole house, that is great. That is really, really good. And presumably if they've got that sort of camera coverage, they have lighting to complement that. Couldn't get a good look sense of it from the from that newsreel, but lighting is there. You notice, I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but maybe the second time I watched it, I noticed that back veranda area, there are 2 dog beds. So there is probably at least 2 dogs on this property, which we never get sight of in this video. And the dogs are really, I think most dogs are inside at night anyway, but we still don't get it. We don't see them sort of like inside the house at all from that camera footage, which is a little bit surprising. With these boys trying to get into the house, it would have made an absolute ruckus that the dogs surely would have heard very early on, if not them coming over the fence and into the property. So I'm not sure why the dogs were completely not involved in the picture at all, unless there's some other detail I'm missing there. But in that exterior layer, yeah, cameras, lights, dogs, there's pretty good visibility. Like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of clutter around obstructing view from the street to what's going on the interior part of the property. Obviously there's the wall there, but that part, where the driveway is, it seems like it's reasonably clear, so the visibility is pretty good. What you did notice too is that these guys were able to find objects that they were able to pick up and use to be able to smash through those bifold doors at the back, which it's kind of a nitpicky thing, but having objects around, and one of them looks like he's picked up some kind of piece of metal. There was some rocks or stones which they were using to try to break the window, which seems really silly, but I guess in the end it works. But I have a feeling was that it almost looked like a shovel, but whatever that sort of metal implement is that he's using to sort of break through the window, would have just found that lying around in the yard. And it's not something you would normally think, oh, we need to keep these sort of objects clear in that exterior space around the house. But the reality is stuff like this does happen. So exterior layer, pretty good. I give them pretty good marks on that. And then finally, the most important layer where you need to be able to deny access is the physical layer. And they did say in the story that these guys basically went around the whole house, checking all the doors and windows, looking for an opportunity to be able to get in. They found that all the doors were locked, presumably. The windows were also prohibited for them to get in. And I don't know what security exactly was on the doors and windows, with the exception of that back veranda area where it seems like they've got a corner with 2 sets of bifold doors. There's a 5-panel bifold and then maybe a 3 or 4-panel bifold adjacent to that. These doors are awesome for a lifestyle, but they are difficult to secure. And what I mean by that is, if you want to put a proper modern security screen on there, it's definitely doable. And if you do it right, the ability to stack those and leave all those open and get amazing breeze in through there is great, as long as it's secured. And if you do get it right, you can leave it open pretty much 24/7 as long as the rain's not coming in. But it is expensive to do, and it's not easy to get it done right. So it needs to be done right to make it worthwhile. If you don't do screens on it, you can do what probably would have prevented this, which is to get a good quality, high strength security film. And there's some good stuff out in the market for that. But that goes on the actual glass and essentially forms a barrier layer on it that helps that glass, that even if it does break, the film holds it there. And this is military grade stuff. that is easily available in the market today that you can get for residential applications. So that would have been great. I'm guessing, who knows, maybe they did have that. I can't tell, but I think if they did, you wouldn't have had that. They wouldn't have even been able to get in. Once they got in, they were able to locate the keys for the cars. Thank God. Hopefully they didn't have to go searching through bedrooms to find those keys. They would have been probably in the kitchen or somewhere available there, which in this case worked out well because we don't know if there's any conflict with the family. So now that we've sort of done that analysis, I would just kind of give a breakdown. And I like to use, it's a little bit nerdy, but a SWOT analysis. That's just SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. From what we can tell, which is a little bit limited, but there's a lot of positives here. There's a couple of things that could be done a little bit better. So if your house is at all comparable to this, maybe you can take away for you as well. But the strengths were that obviously that was fully fenced and gated, and then it was closed at night, which is exactly how you'd want to use that. Keep it shut. There are dogs on the property. Again, we don't know why the dogs were not there. They don't seem to be involved at all. But in general, having dogs on your property should, at a minimum, the dog should be able to raise the alarm as soon as something like this is kicking off. Other strength is that they got great camera coverage. There's no obvious physical security weaknesses around the house that these attackers were able to find. They had to smash their way in. Also, strength is the neighbor relationships. This guy never, well, I'll come to that in a second, but the fact that there was a neighbor who knows these guys and was willing to put himself on the line to respond in their defense, that's awesome. It is. The fact that the car keys were accessible for them, ultimately, I think is a win because it allowed these kids, as bad as it is, to get in, get the cars, and leave without assaulting the family or anything like that. That actually went well, believe it or not. Some weaknesses or things I think probably could be done a little bit better was to have the cars in plain sight. It looks like there's the end of the street directly across from the end of their driveway. This is probably a little bit nitpicky, but the only really improvement I think you could do on having that gate there would be to have some sort of screen or maybe change some sort of material or maybe greenery, like that might not work. Some kind of screen, because what you want to do is you want to obstruct view from the street to see those prestige cars, because they're just going to end up being obviously a bit of a temptation for kids like this that want to make sport out of stealing someone else's property. But being able to obscure those a little bit, I think that's a little bit of weakness in this particular situation. Okay, and then the bifold doors being unprotected, again, it's a high expense to do it right with security screens. I think probably a good compromise is to use security film. So that's a weakness there. And a lot of families would probably be in the same boat where they've got some beautiful bifold doors that are great for lifestyle, but bad for security. So that is probably the most reasonable security enhancement you could do in those doors before you end up putting a screen on them. The dogs, unfortunately, were not involved. They, I think, probably could have been an asset, hopefully, depending on what sort of dog it was, the nature of the dog. Weakness also that the cameras were not effective to identify the attackers. And I think, whilst it's good that we got footage, in this case, they were covered up. They didn't care that there were cameras on. You can see from part of the clip that the kid is trying to sort of maybe disarm the camera or something. But ultimately, they couldn't identify these attackers from what we could tell. They're still at large, and there weren't enough identifying features because of the way that the kids were dressed. So the cameras were not, they only said sort of had limited usefulness, I suppose. Opportunities in this situation. So opportunities are, I think, to put some security on those bifold doors. Any bifold door, they usually at the minimum 3 panels or more. They present, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many panels you've got, targets of glass to be able to smash to get in. So that it makes it obvious where you should put your security, because the doorway is it's the most common method of entry if someone's going to force their way in. So to put film on them, security film, or screen them. Already talked about obscuring the front gate with some kind of screen, or I was thinking greenery, but I'm not sure exactly how you would do that. Upgrade or train the dogs to be able to respond to this sort of thing going on. And then another really gold opportunity for a family in this situation, I think, too, would be to create some kind of a safe room for you and your family inside the house, which even if in a situation like this where they do manage to get past the perimeter through the exterior and actually make it past your physical security on that side of the house, you could still have a basically strong room or safe room located on the inside of the house that you can retreat to and barricade you and your family in there so that you'd be safe regardless. And that's easier to achieve than you would think. And then the other opportunity would just be to strategize with the neighbors. I think obviously the one neighbor, obviously he's engaged, he wants to help. You can essentially engage in some teamwork with them. Hey, we'll look after you guys, you look after us. Here's how we're going to respond to this sort of thing. And there's some strategies you can put in place there, which we're not going to now, but those relationships are gold as well. And then threats, I put, just to have a neighbor that obviously is very well intentioned, very protective, but to go, Walker Texas Ranger in there and guns blazing, or not guns, but shovels. He's out there with a shovel. It was seven teenagers apparently. They're grown men, pretty much. And we'll find out later that they were armed with edged weapons. So if he's running in there with a shovel, if they wanted to engage him, it would have ended very poorly for him, I think. So that's a bit of a threat. I think if someone's life is being threatened, that's different. But if someone's property is being threatened, let them leave and just let the police and insurance sort it out. Just preserving life and health is probably the most important thing. Property is typically replaceable, but that's pretty obvious. And then the other threat is just repeated targeted vehicle theft, I guess you'd put it. So the chance of these guys coming back. So that's always a threat. It's going to be out there still. And I think, a family that goes through something like this will learn from that, and they will make whatever enhancements they can make there to try to prevent that from happening again. But I wanted to just highlight this to be able to show you how you can think through your home security. Again, just in those 3 layers, the physical, exterior, and then perimeter layer, and what you can do at each one of those layers to try to enhance it. Because that is the benefit of having layered security, is that you don't end up with a single point of weakness. If they make it through the perimeter layer, you can hopefully pick them up at one of the inner layers. So you're never going to get to 100%, but you can definitely improve on what you've got so that it makes your home a bit hardened, and that hopefully they won't target you. They might just keep on going down the street because your home just seems like a little bit too much hard work when there's too many other easy targets out there for them. Okay. Anyway, again, well done to this family. They have done well securing their home, and they're securing their home. So don't want it to take it as a knock, but there's always some little things that we can learn here along the way. All right, so there you go. That's the break-in, breakdown. I hope that you found this helpful as just giving you a tool for how you can think about your own home security and be able to apply some of these things. If you are a dad and you feel like, I definitely need to do better for my family for whatever reason, I've got something for you. So it's the 80-20 HomeSec Bootcamp, okay? You've heard of the 80-20 principle. 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your inputs. This is just a principle that applies in life, and it definitely applies to home security. You better believe it. In home security, you don't need to get everything right, but you do need to get the right things right, and that's what we focus on in this bootcamp here, okay? This bootcamp will give you proper layered defense in depth, okay? When you do that right, the tech, the security alarms, security cameras, the alarm systems, the sensors, and all that, that will supercharge your system. If you don't get this piece right, it actually could end up being that your tech is your single point of failure for your home security. And that is exactly the opposite of what you're trying to create. You can get this right on your own. You can, okay? Spend months researching online, reading up on how to do this, and YouTube videos to death. You can get it right. It's just going to take a while. And in the end, you're going to end up taking a guess and spending a bunch of money on something that you hope is going to be correct. Or if you want, instead of doing that, over a single weekend, we can smash this out for you in a small group setting, or as a group of us guys getting it, just learning this together. And we'll just shortcut the entire process for you so you can just get on with it and get on to the next thing. You're too busy not to do this, to be honest. Okay? I know, trust me. Anyway, it's the 80-20 HomeSec Bootcamp. There'll be a link below where you can join that, and I would love to see you in there. Anyway, hope you found this is helpful. If there's any feedback you've got on something I missed in this breakdown, or If there's something that you thought they did well or something else that you thought they could have done, let me know. Love to hear about it. Love to connect with you. And appreciate you hanging out. We'll see you on the next one. God bless.